This is my very first time. So I want to thank Tim for inviting me and exposing me to what I've heard was quite amazing stuff. My deep thought of the day is, death is nature's way of telling you your life has become way too boring. All right, my first book is a memoir. Now, I don't know why anybody would want to read my life story, so I'll tell you. I was born in Dorchester and faced a lot of, I would say, challenges. It was a different town back then than it is now. And South Boston was quite different too. My dad owned a business in South Boston, and I was brought in there since the time I was 8 years old until the time I was in my 30s, let's say, almost, to work in South Boston. Anybody here have roots in South Boston or Dorchester?
Well, my dad was an L Street brownie.
All right.
Yeah.
So he's all wet. they all jump in the water during the winter time. But I'm surprised, because usually I thought a lot of people... Yes?
Yeah, I worked at the Bank of New England in South Boston. We got robbed all the time.
Really? Oh my goodness.
True story.
Well,
How did you deal with it? Were you the one robbing?
They said give them the
I
money.
know.
And you were probably the one robbing.
I have a bunch of students.
Do you? Yeah. Well, when I was in Southie, it was a different town than it is today. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was living through a period of history in the making, actually. It was the time of forced busing. The schools in Boston were under Judge Garrity's rule that you have to desegregate the schools. And I ended up living right across the street from South Boston High School, front door, during that time. So that was quite interesting. I write about all this in the book. The other thing that I experienced as a gas station owner there was the gas shortages. OPEC shut off oil shipments to the United States in protest. And that made running a gas station, especially in the heart of Boston, very traumatic. You see the lines going on in New York right now? Well, that's what I was dealing with back in the era. In fact, Whitey Bulger himself pulled a gun on me at the pumps one day, demanded a full tank of gas. I write about that in here too. But you will find that my book is filled with instances, one after the other, of very poor judgment. I had so many run-ins and near-death experiences that were all due to my own stupidity. Maybe people will learn from some of my mistakes. But they involved cars, boats, aircraft, and guns. All the things that you should stay away from. Got poor judgment. But there is... Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was, well, I had the gas station in South Boston. I mean, this was a time during an epic period in Boston when Whitey Bulger was pretty much in charge of all the drug trade, the gambling, and all the good stuff that was going on in Southie. And in turn, when I had the auto shop, I got to know a lot of those characters firsthand because I was their mechanic. Everybody needs gas, everybody needs a good mechanic. They all liked me for some reason. So I got to know loan sharks, bookies, drug dealers, and several killers, actually. There is one aspect of my book that I want to point out that has nothing to do with me. After every few chapters, I inserted a few reader's notes pages, and I want people to answer the questions that I pose to them. You know, like, have you ever in your life just had poor judgment, where poor judgment ruled, where you've made bad mistakes? I see some smiles out there. Youthful memories that you've created with good friends. I want you to write those things that you've never told anybody before. Write about the people that influenced your life in a good or bad way. Because everybody's had people that have influenced their life. Yeah, each of us has a book waiting to be written, so I hope you will take advantage of that opportunity to document some of the good stuff in your life. While I was in South Boston, in dealing with the criminal element that I had coming in to the shop all the time, I was given a lot of opportunity through which I could become involved with the mob. They approached me to store hijacked trucks in the shop, where they would have given me thousands of dollars just to park a vehicle overnight. It was loaded with hot liquor or cigarettes that they had hijacked. I said no to those offers. I was approached to hold high-stakes poker games for mob members in the back room of my shop, and I also said no to that. They even approached me one day when they found out I was having trouble with somebody in the neighborhood and offered to kill the man for me for the price of the bullet. So as you can see, I was on pretty good terms with these guys. But I always wondered, what would my life have been like if I had said yes to all of those options? It would have been different than the life that I lead now. So I decided to write my second book, which is a fictional version of my memoir. You'll see a lot of the same situations in the real story are in the second book, only I say yes to all of those options. And needless to say, the book, my life takes a whole different turn. The fictional character's name in this book is Nick, and I'll read a few pages of it. Chapter 1, The Alley. The voice on the payphone said, "Nick, come to the alley at midnight. We'll have your money waiting." The caller wasn't the guy I'm used to dealing with, but he did sound vaguely familiar for some reason. I couldn't quite place where I had heard that voice before. Asking names on the phone would have been unwise. There's always the chance of a wiretap on the line, or maybe even a bug in my office. It was just a few hours ago when I received that call. The $1,000 I'm going to collect in payment is payment for a favor I had done for the mob. It was a simple thing, a job like I've done many times before, always with the promise of a good payment. I'll be relieved once this cash is in my hand. This particular payment is a very special one. It's the last grand I'll ever collect from the West Side Gang. Whitey had sent his enforcer, Buzz, to tell me he wouldn't be sending any more jobs my way, all because of an unintentional but major problem I caused him recently. That's just fine with me. I've already let it be known that I was planning to sell the shop, leave Southie, and leave this crazy life behind me anyway. My gut has been telling me for a while now that it's time to leave this environment of killing and crime while I still can. My gut is seldom wrong. Just prior to Whitey's decision to cut ties with me, Buzz had stopped in at my gas station and asked me to store another hijacked truck in my shop for just a few hours. As always, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't need to know the truck's origin or its contents. In fact, the less I knew, the better I liked it. With no time for the gang to make other arrangements, I needed to follow through with this one last assignment. That favor went off without a hitch, and now it's time to get paid. As I leave the tavern en route to my midnight rendezvous, I feel relaxed. Late night meetings like this are not new to me. I expected nothing more than the usual envelope to be handed to me by some tough guy who might have the tinge of whiskey on his breath. My faithful companion, Dad's old semi-automatic Beretta, was securely tucked in behind my back in the waistband of my trousers. Lately, I don't go anywhere without that gun hidden under my shirt. As I park the caddy, I scan the area to make sure I haven't been followed. All is quiet and still. Walking along, I turn the corner, entering the alley. It's a location of my final pickup. I'm thinking about how glad I am I will never have to do this again. While not relishing the darkness of this damp, foul-smelling place, I pass by an overflowing dumpster, hearing what sounds like the scurry of a family of rats. But suddenly, from behind that dumpster, I hear something much more threatening. It's the sound of footsteps rushing up behind me. I immediately tense up, but there's no time to react before a massive arm wraps tightly around my throat, strangling my airway and rendering me defenseless. Instantly, I feel a sharp stabbing pain in the middle of my back, starting at the bottom, and more working their way up to just below my neck. There's an audible crunch with each thrust of the blade as it hits and contacts the bones of my spine. It all happens so fast, yet the horror I'm experiencing seems to go on forever, as if time has slowed to a crawl. Then, with one quick motion, the stranglehold is released, and I instantly drop to the ground. The back of my head hits the pavement with a painful thump. Both legs are crumpled beneath me, unable to move. My assailant, whom thus far I haven't even seen, steps around me as I lay there at his mercy. He leans slightly forward to get a closer look at his work. Directly over his right shoulder, the full moon shines, creating a frightening sight. Only darkness fills the space within his hood, the hood of his sweatshirt, where a face should be. Thoughts of the Grim Reaper flash through my mind. A deep, eerily familiar voice speaks just a few words. "Payback's a bitch, ain't it, Nick?" It's the voice from that phone call, but who is it? I still can't place that voice. But I do know one thing for sure, I don't like it. My assailant must feel that his mission is accomplished because he just turns and walks away. I want to yell out, "Who are you?" But I'm unable to speak. All I can do is think to myself, point made, payback's a bitch, but for what? In a state of shock and disbelief, I stare helplessly at the silhouette of this dark figure as he leaves me lying there and slowly fades into the darkness. The sound of his footsteps on the damp pavement grows fainter and fainter. Then there is total, chilling silence. The sense of aloneness that I feel becomes more intense with each second that ticks by. As I lie there shaking, I'm losing blood as it flows from the multiple stab wounds in my back. I don't see it or feel it, but I know it's happening as I grow weaker. I can't do a thing to help myself, and I realize that these are most likely the final moments of my life. The knowledge that things didn't have to end this way hurts far worse than the wounds that I have sustained. But ultimately, my regrets count for nothing. This is the life and possibly the death I have chosen. I attempt once again to yell for help, but only a faint sound comes out. My legs refuse to respond to my wishes. The only things I feel are the wetness of blood pooling around the back of my head and the tears as they make their way down my face to rendezvous with my blood. All pain seems to have disappeared, but I feel increasingly dizzy and faint. My mind begins to wander. I'm thinking that this guy knew exactly what he was doing. He left me here to suffer a long, drawn-out death, with plenty of time to think about why I'm here. This is my night of blood, tears, and regrets. The terror I am experiencing is inexplicably subsiding. I now notice the full moon shining behind brightly for the second time, even though it has been staring me right in the face ever since I first dropped to the pavement. Clouds begin to float across the sky above the alley. A sense of acceptance of my situation, a total calmness is flowing over me as the black clouds drift in front of the moon, obscuring it completely from view now. But the calmness is short-lived. Everything starts to spin. I feel myself slipping away from consciousness as the dire reality of what has happened kicks in. I fear that the coming darkness and nothingness that passing out will surely bring. I fear I will never wake up again. As hard as I fight to keep my eyes open, it's no use, they close. What's happening? The total lack of awareness and darkness that I expected to accompany this unconsciousness does not take over. There is no more dizziness. The spinning has ceased. I feel no dampness on the ground, no warmth from the blood that's pooling around my head. I don't feel as if I'm even in the alley any longer. I sense sunlight warming my face. I must force my eyes open. That's the end of chapter 1. From this point on, Nick drifts in and out of consciousness. and starts to have flashbacks of his kind of disturbing past, starting with his childhood and leading incident by incident to the life that ended up leading him to this place in the alley and the nightmare that he's experiencing right now. And during these visions, Nick tries, but he finds that he's totally unable to change even the simplest decision from his past. No matter how hard he tries, he realizes some choices, once made, cannot be undone. Thanks for listening.